Hi everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Building Your Recruitment Business from Dubai. Really happy to have you all with us today. My name is Sarah. For those of you who don't know me, I am a partner at Seven Figure Recruitment alongside Justin McGuire, who's joining me today. Justin, do you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Hello, everyone. Yes, my name's Justin McGuire. I'm the founder of a business called MCG Talent, which is a niche recruitment business that's operated in the Middle East and Asia. I'm an exited founder, so I sold the Asia business. Also, was part of two other exits as well, so I can talk a bit about what it's like to go through that. And the main thing I'm doing right these days is I'm a partner with Sarah in Seven Figure Consulting. And essentially what we do is we advise recruitment founders on how to build, scale, or even sell their recruitment business. And then particularly, we look at people who want to come to the Middle East as well, because we can share all our expertise from having years of business in the region as well. So we thought we'd do this webinar today to go under the skin and give you the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, exactly. We've been getting so many questions lately from people who are looking at Dubai and thinking about whether that's the next move for their business. So we want to keep this session really interactive. So if you do have questions for myself and Justin at any point, there is a chat function at the bottom of your screen. So if you just wiggle your mouse, you'll be able to see it. So at any point, if you have questions that you want to ask us, just pop it in there. If we don't have a time to answer it straight away, we will answer questions at the end, but just make sure if there's anything that you want to know throughout the webinar that you pop your questions in there, and we'll try and answer as many as we possibly can. All right, let's get into it. So as we mentioned, Justin, we've been hearing a lot lately from founders that we're speaking to and working with about Dubai and whether that should be their next move for their agency. Why do you think there's so much focus on Dubai right now when it comes to people looking at expansion or potentially moving their HQ?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why. First of all, I think Dubai has done a phenomenal job on the global scale from a PR perspective of just promoting itself as a safe place to do business, as a very tax efficient way to do business. Dubai has invested heavily into into how easy it is to open up businesses now. When I set up many moons ago, it was a very long, laborious, complicated process. Now it is incredibly simple. So there's lots of reasons why Dubai has become, the place to move and do your business. Also, I would say post-COVID, a lot of people recognized, during COVID that Dubai was very smart. They kept the city open. They made it, they gave remote working visas. A lot of people came here. They saw what a wonderful place it was. And from that, people have just realized that actually running a global business here makes a lot of sense. You've got the right time zones, you've got the ability to work into Europe, the ability to work into Asia. So there's lots of pluses why Dubai is right. And of course, the economies in the GCC region have been pretty good, okay? So where the rest of the world has perhaps been lagging and struggling, those in the GCC region have been really quite steady. So there are many reasons which we can go into, but these are one of the multiple of reasons why people are now choosing Dubai as a place to open up their business.
Yeah, 100%. You've had a business in Dubai for 15 years. What kind of made you come out here in the first place? And then I guess what's kept you here since? Because 15 years is no small feat, right?
Actually, I've been in Dubai nearly 18 years. So
Okay.
I had a visa for nearly 18 years. Now, I've spent some time in and out Dubai doing that. And that's one of the beauties of Dubai, which I'll come on to as well, is the fact that you can so easily travel around from there. But what brought me to Dubai was opportunity. At the time, I'm old enough to remember how horrible it was to work in the great financial crisis in 2008. Dubai, I got offered a job in Dubai during that time, and it's for that reason that I moved there. And it served me incredibly well. It was a tough time to go at the beginning, very tough time to go there. It was a time when Dubai was saying the cranes were still moving, and then all of a sudden, the market crashed. So I saw a lot of people leave. And then I saw a lot of people have to come back as well. And they came back because Abu Dhabi bailed Dubai out. And there was this great run where I was able to set up and become one of the first boutique recruitment business owners at that time.
Yeah. All right, perfect. So let's get practical then when it comes to setting up a recruitment agency in Dubai. Just talk to me a little bit about what are the costs involved in setting up and running your recruitment agency from Dubai?
Okay, so I think these days things are a lot easier. They are back in the day, you had to open up a business and you had to go into partner with a local, and then there was the free zone option, but you couldn't look at having recruitment on your free zone license, so it was very complicated. All right. Now it's a lot easier, and they've made onshore licensing much easier, and you can 100% own an onshore business. Now, in layman's terms, what that means is you can have a license with the Dubai government that's 100% owned by you, and you don't have to be in business with a local now. And I think for a recruitment business, that is the absolute best thing to do. You don't need to have a local partner. All right. Now, in terms of the costs, I'm going to talk in USD because I think that hopefully that can help people out. You should be looking around about an HR consultancy license, or one that allows you to do executive search, is around about $6,800. Okay. Now you're going to need to get visas with that. So let's assume you're a small business opening up, maybe with 3 visas. So that's each visa. So the founder would perhaps have an investor visa. So that's $1,300. And then after that, your employee visas, let's say you've got 2 of those, you'll have about $3,800. You'll need a labor and a signature card as well. So in total, to set up a business, you're probably looking around about $13,000.
Okay. And that's on the setup fees. I know that we've both spoken to people recently who then have other kind of fees that come after that, you know, the classic big office, big team, all of that sort of thing. What does that look like in Dubai for most people, and where have you potentially seen people make mistakes when they come over here and start up an office?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think Dubai is going to be a lot easier than what it actually is. Okay, so they come here. Also, a lot of say UK businesses or a lot of international businesses come here expecting the way they've operated their business in other regions to work so seamlessly here. It doesn't work like that. But they also get blinded by the lights, I call it. So they go for very expensive office space. They choose the wrong license. They choose a license that perhaps might not make them compliant, or they go into business with a local. So they make lots of initial mistakes because they're ill-informed. And there's lots of, shall I say, cowboy businesses out there that don't really give you the best advice, and are just looking to take you for a ride, quite honestly. And there's a lot of them. So you need to be very careful in particular about who you choose. And again, I've got many trusted sources. So if anyone's looking to open up, please drop me a message and I can put them your way. So that's one of the big mistakes. The other mistake that people make is hiring. When you speak to most founders that move over to Dubai, they pay a lot of money for very average talent. I think there's a real problem in Dubai where it's very hard to find a good recruiter. Now, many people will tell me that it's very hard to find a good recruiter anywhere. It feels to me like Dubai is where a lot of average recruiters congregate. And the reason I'm going to say that, and people might find it controversial, is complacency is a big problem that sets in the Dubai market. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that people get used to a lovely lifestyle. They take home their salary. They have their apartment. They have their car on finance. They have got a swimming pool. They do brunches and beaches. They spend all their money, by the way. All their salary goes on these like lovely things. But ultimately, they lose their edge. I've found that and I've recruited hundreds of people into Dubai, and I had real problems getting when I started recruiting British and Irish recruiters. And sorry to the British and Irish recruiters out there, they seem to be my biggest problems, because I was bringing people out and they were on forever holidays. They'd have their ambition for about 3 to 6 months, and then all of a sudden it just went. And every weekend they were on a big holiday. They looked hungover when they came in. And I had this merry-go-round of problems that people just kept treating Dubai a bit like a holiday destination. And I found it really hard to meet people like myself, and there is a few others, really focused recruiters. And then so what I did was I changed the script, and I hired for attitude. and I trained skill. And some of the best successes I had was when I went down that path. I hired from industry, because we were in the marketing communications creative world. I hired from industry into recruitment, or I took people from sales jobs and trained them into recruitment. That went incredibly well. But I would say to any founder out there, don't rush to hire straight away, and be very careful who you hire from the local market. And the big problem that I see founders do in Dubai, and I was talking to another recruitment founder about this the other day, is no one takes references in Dubai. I mean, I've fired people and I've seen them get promotions elsewhere. It seems remarkable that recruitment business owners don't run references. And my recommendation to anyone in Dubai or anywhere is run a reference on the recruiter that you hire. It could be some of your most expensive errors that you make.
Yeah. And
And
just
if I should probably just add to that as well, just to kind of inform any founder that if you hire someone, you have to get their health insurance, you have to get their tools, their technology. So you're paying probably an extra $10,000 on top of their salary. And if you're going to hire someone average, that's just going to cost you a fortune.
Yeah, and just on the subject of people, I know that you went through quite a big transformation with your agency, MCG Talent, and it's now what we teach as part of the seven figure program is how to have a lean agency that's not as reliant on people as a traditional recruitment agency, let's just say. So, can you just tell me a little bit around like what does lean actually mean operationally in Dubai? If you want to have your HQ based out of Dubai or an office based on Dubai, how do you run that in a lean way that's not, so reliant on unreliable people as we just kind of heard about?
Yeah, so look, Dubai is a phenomenal place to do business, and as I said, the setup, the ease, the banking, it's a great place to have to trade and transact from. It's very hard to scale from there. And I've alluded to some of the problems that you have with staff. Also, it's quite an expensive market. When I first went to Dubai, it was the 60th most expensive city in the world. Now it's in the top five, probably. Okay, I think it is in the top five. I think that's been declared now. So the cost of doing business is extremely high. And as I saw my costs going up, now I worked out that from the time I set up to now, they're around 40%, if not more. So you're losing 40% just on setup and running a business compared to when I opened up 15 years ago, MCG. So what I decided to do was, rather than rely on the 360 model and rather than rely on having a business where all my headcount was in Dubai, I built a very solid marketing function, which Sarah, you helped me build, which delivered inbound leads. That operated as a marketing and a business development funnel. I had and have people on the ground as account managers. So those people meet clients. I think that is important in the UAE market and in other GCC markets. Having face-to-face time, it's a relationship-driven market, is incredibly important. But then I offshored all delivery, and all my ops finance I offshored as well. So it kept a real lean cost base in Dubai, a crucial but lean cost base in Dubai, allowed me to capitalize on the business in Dubai, but then run things from a logistics perspective in a very thrifty fashion. And what I did is, as AI has ever so increased and technologies become ever more prevalent in the market, what I've done is I've invested in tools and technology that can help that whole system run much smoother. So that's how we've grown our business. It enabled me to sell our Asia Pac business in this model as a lean, efficient machine. And that's how we run the Dubai business. And to be honest with you, I would recommend anyone does the same. I've also, and again, this is probably something I'm just going to say, I've also set up a franchise model in Dubai because we've had a business there for a long time. Again, I allow experienced recruiters to plug into our systems, so they get our marketing team, our delivery function, our finance function, and they can just plug into that system, a business that's got an audience of over 1 million, and they can operate that way as well. And if you're a solo recruiter looking to go, that's probably a pretty interesting option. And any other recruitment business that's established in Dubai, I would consider that as an option for you as well.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So we spoke there about, I guess, having a business based out of Dubai that's actually serving, the GCC market. I know that we also work with founders as part of the program that have Dubai as their business base, but don't necessarily actually operate within this market. They're maybe serving UK, US, or more kind of APAC markets. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about potentially looking at something like that? And what are the benefits of doing that?
Okay, so that's this is something we're seeing more and more.
Yeah.
People relocating to Dubai, and this has been a big change since my time in Dubai. People relocating to Dubai, but not transacting in the local market. So serving Eastern Europe, serving the UK, some serving the USA, some serving the APAC markets. Why does it work? Well, it works obviously fantastically well from a tax perspective. Corporation tax is incredibly low at 9%. There's no income tax, and it's a very efficient way of running a business. Obviously, there's time zone intricacies to deal with that. The issue that people have when they hire this way in the Dubai market is finding local talent, finding talent that wants to work those hours, finding talent that is capable of working those hours, because there's lots of other options for them. So yes, you can do that, but the struggle you will find is actually in finding talent that's willing to work those hours as a founder. So that model that I've spoken about perhaps banking, fronting up, and then having additional teams running internationally and offshore could be an option for you to go.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And then before we ran this webinar, we had a comment from a founder who said they'd spent thousands on bringing people out, expensive office space, and then had to restructure everything. What are the biggest mistakes, I guess, that you've seen people make when they set up their HQ or an office in Dubai? What are the things that people tend to get wrong?
Well, you do need local understanding. You do need, of this scenario that you just spelled out slams of that classic scenario that I stated at the beginning, that people just thinking they can teleport their business into Dubai. It's, if you don't have anyone with regional experience, you're going to be on the back foot big time. You're going to be up against people like me in my business who's been there for 15 years. We know how things work. Okay. So I would always suggest to get a good setup team, you should hire one good local person and then bring someone or the founder out into that market. So you've got a combination of local knowledge and understanding. Because now, for some businesses who moved out to Dubai, haven't even transacted and decided to start there, that's really, really tough ask, because the Dubai market and the GCC market will chew you up and spit you out. People think the streets are paved of gold, but in fact, terms are very tough. There's people willing to work at 8%. I can't believe that, but there is. And payment terms can be incredibly hard. Cash flow management in Dubai, if you ask anyone that's had a business in any sector, is incredibly challenging. Okay, incredibly challenging. It is one of those things that, the big businesses don't pay you on time. I'll just call it for what it is. So, and as hard as you challenge them, it can be very hard to get paid on time every time. So cash flow management needs to be really, really efficient. And the big advice I would get, and one of the game changers for my business, was I hired a finance guy that knew how the Middle East ticked. Getting someone from the UK, getting someone international market to do your cash collection, do your accounting, you're asking for problems as well, because they will see it as how their market operates. And the Middle East, the GCC, it has its own way of doing things. All right. So I hope that gives some fair tips. I think what also that person did, which was a big mistake, was it went for looked at rents and went for very flashy areas. Now, I would always recommend, you don't need tier 1 office space at the beginning. You can do it from co-working. If co-working doesn't work from you, there's plenty of opportunities to be in tier 2 and tier 3 areas. Now, traffic in Dubai, for anyone that's not been there, is a nightmare. Okay, so you also need to logistically choose somewhere where you're not going to be stuck in traffic for an hour when you go to meet people. So a simple 1 hour meeting can take nearly 3 hours to go and meet people. So you need to choose your office space wisely on that. But to give you an idea, I think what typically in tier 1 office space now, I mean, 500 square feet and that's somewhere like in the Marina or DIFC. That can cost you like $75,000 a year. Okay. Tier 2, I mean, or mid-tier, big difference there. That's around about $15,000 to about $40,000 if you want to take a bigger space. And I say the more affordable areas, so the older districts, you're probably looking anywhere between $10,000 to $24,000 for the year. Okay. Co-working, seats, typically they go for around about $500 a month. But keep in mind, if you're a recruiter, you're going to piss everyone off because you're going to be on the phone. So there's a hard one with co-working.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we've had a question, which I think is quite interesting, potentially around what's the difference of actually recruiting in this market versus in maybe like a UK market, for example. I know that we've spoke a lot about how relationship driven the Middle East market is. How different is it when it comes to the actual tactical business development and recruitment in this market versus other potentially more established markets?
It's a relationship market, but it's also a market where people are very price sensitive. So they're constantly going to be negotiating with you. Okay. Now, rates wise, most people, we don't go for anything below 18%, but we've got excluding some old contracts that we've got over at 15%. But you've got businesses that refuse to pay 15%. And that is one of the biggest things that people bump into and go, wow, now why is it like that here? So the rates is number one thing you really need to understand, that you're going to enter negotiation and it's going to be tough. They also love, and don't tell me why, but the GCC region loves first past the post recruitment. What do I mean by that? They love hiring about 10 agencies on every role. Do not ask me why. The amount of times I've had conversations with people saying that is the worst way to go about it. Everyone gets a poor service. The client does, the candidate does, but still I find it's prevalent. And you have to do a big education piece there. The other thing I'm going to tell you is the whole contracting market, it really doesn't exist in the Middle East. Everyone is on a permanent visa, okay? And if it does exist, it's through golden visas, or if you want to get a contracting book, you kind of have to do it through a third-party supplier who've got a manpower license, because getting a manpower license is very different to getting an executive search license. And a manpower license costs millions of dollars, and you need to have a guarantee to it. So those that do contracting quite often, excluding a few that have paid a lot of money for this manpower license, they have to go through third parties. So your margins are very thin, and you're running visas through other companies. So it can be a very tough business to scale. And if you want to sell your business and you're using a third party, the compliance behind it is incredibly complicated. So it's permanent. It's a permanent heavy market. And most people don't want to get involved in those intricacies. And if I can just add as well, for whatever reason, the GCC does not like retainers. Now, I'm open to being challenged on this, but I've got 15 years of pitching these for MCG, and 2 years before that pitching. Yes, we get some, but my God, is it rare. My God, is it hard. It's a market where people typically don't like it. So those that get it, retainers, I'm sure they'll confirm what I said. You've got to pitch hard. Your pitch deck needs to be solid. You need to be in front of people. You need to get on a plane to go to Saudi. Saudi's the place where we get probably most retainers. You need to go and see people, really understand why. You need to make them understand why a retainer works. You've got to pitch heavy. And don't forget, there's going to be someone up the road that will go, oh, you don't need to worry about a retainer with me. I'll do it for 8%. And you're always battling against them. So that's some of the intricacies I hope I've spelled out here.
Perfect. All right, based on that, let's just flip it on its head and talk about what does doing it right look like? What are the things that you need to really get right to have a successful business in this part of the world? So
Yeah,
one of the
okay.
questions that we got asked, for example, is how can a smaller boutique agency in Dubai stand out against like a more well-established, maybe bigger kind of global agency? What are all of the things that you need to take into consideration when it comes to setting yourself up for success if you're coming out here for the first time?
Sure. Well, if you're coming out here for the first time, I would say make sure it's a soft landing. Don't come up and open up in Dubai and expect to transact in the Dubai market straight away. You've got to have relationships. You touched on this, okay? It's a relationship-driven market. The people that do well and thrive and prosper are the people like my business and quite a other several, established players in the market that have really taken the time to get to know and understand their clients. Okay. The other big difference now is that people still set up in the GCC region as generalists. Look, when I opened up, I was like one of the first 5 niche specialists. Okay. I could just say, hey, I do marketing, and people would be like, oh, you just do marketing? That's crazy, right? Well, those days are long gone. Now it's a niche of a niche of a niche. If you want to open up in Dubai where there's, LinkedIn told me 450 recruiters, 450 different recruiters opened up in the past 12 months. Well, if you want to stand out, you've got to be a niche. You've got to be a real sector specialist. You've got to have relationships. And my cheat code always in Dubai, and it was the bit that I think enabled me to grow. It's the bit that enables us to still have business now, is that I invested in marketing. Why? It is an area, a region where everyone loves to see you. They will look for proof points. LinkedIn tells you that the UAE is its most engaged market globally. Well, that means people are on it all the time. Let's just call it for what it is. So you've got to be present. You've got to have a marketing strategy. You've got to be in people's faces. And if you are, then you have a chance to develop those relationships, to get meetings and to go and see people. The people that I've coached in Dubai that have excelled are the ones that focused on marketing, that built a personal brand, built a business brand, built a podcast, built a webinar series. They've genuinely got into their niche, under the skin, and have become the go-to people. Now, in a market like Dubai, that's actually very small. In a market like Dubai, that's actually got a lot of very average recruiters. If you just apply some of those things that I've just said and you do them consistently, you'll get noticed and you'll quickly be seen as the go-to person in that market. And you've got to apply those tactics. And if you do that, you go and meet people, they see you, your product, your candidates are what you say they are, you'll thrive in that market. And you can thrive quickly, all right? Because not a lot of people do that well.
Yeah, 100%. I think the marketing element is something that's interesting and something that a lot of people don't focus on too much when they kind of come over here. So it's a real big miss opportunity when it comes to positioning yourself. In terms of kind of your first hires when you come over here, what would be the first person maybe that you need to hire when you're coming over here and looking to scale?
Yeah. So I can just tell you about my bloopers and my success. The success I had was people that I trained up, that are people that I got from the local market that understood the intricacies of Dubai, but then I trained them up into understanding what our recruitment business was like. Okay. The ones I had the least success with was experienced recruiters that moved over. Okay. When I flicked the switch and eventually got that right was when I brought people in and I gave them a piece of the action, i.e., put them on profit shares or gave them a skin in the game. Okay. And that's a different conversation that you have with people. But initially, for most people that want to move out, I would really, really recommend, if you can, if the founders out there, if you bring someone senior, bring someone in, a junior person perhaps that you can train up. Okay. Hiring experience, there's a lot of, I think I'm very skeptical of hiring recruiters in the market with 1 to 2 years experience that haven't really excelled, that aren't really spoken about. And it's a small market. You get to know who the good players are very quickly. There's a lot of people that are paid well. I did a post about this on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago. People check. There's a lot of businesses that pay a lot of money for some very average recruiters and don't make any money out of them. Okay. And then those are often the ones that are looking on the market. And I find that those are the ones that the new players into the market end up snapping up because they don't know about them yet. So you've got to be very careful about who you hire. You've got to choose very wisely.
Yeah. And then if you're thinking about your client mix, let's say, do you have any advice for people on like should they be going for like your big 500 people plus businesses, more boutique kind of business sizes? Like how important is it to get that mix right in this region?
Look, I think it's very hard. There's multiple different sectors and there's multiple different businesses. I think you see some people launch in Dubai with the flagship clients. So they could have Saudi Aramco, or they could have ADNOC, they could have Abu Dhabi Media. They could have a really nice business to launch from, and then they expand out from there. I think that's a really nice way to do it. We've always gone for a blended approach with clients. Okay. Now, keep in mind, I'm going to talk about my niche here, which is Marcoms. We've gone agencies, management consultancies, government, semi-government, okay, and technology companies. That gives you a broad spectrum of people that we can work with. They don't all fire together though. And the agencies right now in our sector are having a very tough time internationally. So our predominantly most of our clients are working in the corporate, semi-government and technology space. Okay. The low-hanging fruit for recruiters now, I've seen there's been a real, as there is globally, there's been a real surge in-housing. And I think let's be honest, AI and technology has made some of your clients want to invest in building out their own teams. So the bigger businesses are very hard to land now. There's heavy procurement processes. When I came out, you could work with a Majid Alpha team, you could work with an Alpha team, and based on a conversation of knowing one person. Now you'll get procurement, it'll take ages, they'll try and beat you on price, you go on a PSL list that you're up against an internal team. So it's a long-winded process. Dubai is an established market now. It's not a frontier market, okay? So the sweet spot for anyone is going to be those boutiques, anywhere between 5 to 30 people. That's where you're going to get your lowest hanging fruit. And there's a lot of businesses in your niche in that sector, I imagine, that are going through quite a fast period of growth because they're probably onto something in the region. If you can tap into them and get 4 or 5 of them, you'll have a fantastic year.
Yeah. And the name of this webinar is centered around Dubai, but we can't ignore, and someone's asked this in the chat, Saudi Arabia and how important that is when it comes to the GCC and how many agencies are set up in Dubai to serve Saudi. So, what's your kind of experience of people setting up maybe in Dubai but then looking to service the Saudi market? What's the differences between the two, and what does it look like to actually be able to serve that market from a Dubai base?
Look, you can do this. You can serve the Saudi market from Dubai. I'd be lying if I said you didn't. But the Saudi market is changing almost, it feels monthly, quite frankly. Saudi is a very localized market. So if you're gonna have a business in Dubai and serve the Saudi market, need to be flying on those 2 hour flights into Riyadh very frequently. They want to see you. Saudis want to hire people that want to work with people that invest in Saudi, that understand Saudi, that understand the intricacies of Saudiization. The difference between the Saudi market and the Dubai market is Saudi wants to employ local first. It has a very young, energized population that want to get into the workforce, and Saudi's big radical shakeup is all about energizing the local workforce. So you need to understand that if you're going to do business in Saudi. On top of that, what you've also got to do is you've got to probably be out there frequently. And I made the call to get a license there because I felt like I did in Dubai many years ago that it was becoming ever more prevalent that you had to have a license there. You couldn't do it remote from the UK. That you had to be seen. You had to have a presence. And if you're to win good, interesting contracts now and have a chance of it, you've got to have a license there. So I'm not saying you have to have a license in Saudi. I'm saying if you're going to transact there, you need to understand it, you need to see them, and you need to understand what's going on behind the scenes, what Saudi's doing, what Vision 2030 is all about, what the local workforce is all about, how you can employ, how hard it is to find Saudis. You need to understand that. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, Sarah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a very interesting market. And I think that one of the things that you touched on there is like the localization and kind of quotas and things like that, which I think maybe if you've not been in this market before, it might be something that you're not 100% sure on. So that's all things that you need to take into consideration when you're kind of setting up in these markets.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else that you think is super important that you need to get right to set yourself up for success in this region before we move on?
Yeah, look, it's having the right license, having the right talent, the right team, the right systems and tools. Look, as I said to you, whether you like it or not, you're going to need to invest in LinkedIn in the UAE because it's the most it is a market that really is dominated by them. For us, we also have a very good we use Clay, we use an email and LinkedIn automation as well, and reply.io. So you can have a nice system and structure that's set up there. I would 100% recommend you look at an offshore team and make sure that you've got a localized understanding of what's going on in the market. Okay. I think someone's asked, if you don't mind me saying, Sarah, I think someone's asked what the setup costs are for Saudi. Okay. I think just to be clear as that as well, Saudi setup costs are quite a bit more expensive than Dubai, and setting up an executive search business or a manpower license there isn't quite as easy as it is in the UAE. And there's a bit of red tape that you need to go through. And if you're a foreign and international owned business, there is now, you need to make sure that some of your degrees and educational certificates align to what you're doing, which can make things very complicated. And if they don't, you quite often need to then get a Saudi partner involved, which is a system that they had in the UAE. So setting up in businesses in Saudi is becoming ever more easy. Setting up an executive search business in Saudi is very expensive and complicated. We spent over $100,000 getting ours up and running, and that was just when I had to factor in up, flying backwards and forwards the amount of times that we did as well, meeting people, extra costs, agency costs, etc. It's a very expensive affair. Whoever's asked that question, if they want to message me afterwards, I can share my experience on that.
Perfect. We've had another question here around getting a license as a recruitment agency in Dubai. Now, I know that you're not a business setup person, but you've obviously been in the region for a long time, so you might know the answer to this. To get a license in Dubai, do you need to have that attached to an office or co-working address?
Yeah, that's a really good question. To have an onshore business, they do want to see an office. Okay. Now, it doesn't need to be a big glamorous office. And like I said, if I was you in a startup, I would just get a one-person office or a very small, small one-person office or two-person office in a work center that perhaps has that perhaps has space. You can get that anywhere between, honestly, you can probably get that around about $5,000 to $10,000, okay, for the year. If it's a tiny small office, okay, that's probably the best way of going about it if you're a small LLC. Don't go into those markets, those areas that I mentioned, like Dubai Marina, like DIFC, like Business Bay, which is becoming ever more expensive. First of all, you're going to be paying a fortune. Secondly, you're going to be wedged in traffic, by the way, and that's going to drive you mad. So I actually think some of the fringe areas, Dubai Hills, you've got places near Studio City. There's some great co-working slightly back where the more affordable housing is as well. These are really good places to look to open up your business now. I know a very successful recruitment company. Actually, they came from the MCG Academy, as I like to call it, because we've been very good over the years of helping promote other entrepreneurs. And they're an international. Where are they? They're in Production City. Love it, very easy to get to and from with the traffic. So there's options out there. Don't go for straight the obvious ones that you see or that you might know from your holidays.
Yeah. And then someone's asking around, I guess, kind of salaries and commission for recruiters in the UAE. I know that you had a bit of a viral post about this subject the other day. So if you wouldn't mind just giving a bit of insight into, if you're a business owner who's coming over here and looking to set up, like, what are the costs that you can expect to have to incur for having an employee, both kind of, I guess, on the salary and commission side, but also on the costs of like visas, health insurance, all of that stuff that people might not automatically think about when it comes to having staff here?
Yeah, I think I think you're probably looking at around an extra $10,000 on, and that's that when you look at laptops, when you look at tools and tech, when you look at visas, which around about $1,300. When you look at gratuity, which you're going to need, gratuity is like the UAE pension scheme. So for every year someone works for you, you essentially pay them 1 month's salary. So you've got to have that factored in as well. The salary levels, look, they are because the cost of living in Dubai has shot up so much. Salaries have gone up loads. When I first set up, what I paid people 12 to 15,000 for, these people now are asking for 20,000 dirhams a month. Okay, so you need to make sure. One of the big problems that I see people do in the Dubai market is they don't have the salaries aligned to what people should be billing. Okay. Now, I was speaking to the contentious part about my post was many people didn't believe me when I said big billers in companies are billing 1.2 to 1.4 million dirhams, which is, I guess that's around about $340,000 or something as a max. And that's, what I'm being, the people that I'm talking to that reach out to me and ask me for this sort of advice, that's what their big billers are earning. There are some people in the, I noticed in the comments who said that their top billers are earning 3 million dirhams. But I did notice a trend that those people were also ones that had a quite extensive product suite, i.e. they had contracting in their business. Midweight recruiters, like from what I can see in the market, you're paying 15 to 18,000. These people are producing, and I'm talking in dirhams, so apologies, but these people are producing around about 600 to 800,000 dirhams in a year. So that's just under 200,000, well, that's circa $200,000, I think. So it's a market where getting a reward, a decent reward off your staff, and a decent bit of money in profit margins. Businesses have really struggled with that in GCC. It's why so many have shut down. It's why so many have shrunk. I talked about this a lot. In the entire time I've been in the GCC region, there have been two transactions, really two transactions people talk about, Halion and RP. Both had contracting books. When it comes to permanent recruitment transactions, nothing of any significance. Okay, maybe the odd small MBO. Maybe I think Cooper Fitch had someone acquire some shares in their business, but nothing of prominence. Okay, there haven't been any big transactions, and that's because it's a perm reliant market. It's a market where there's got very expensive headcount, where not a lot of people bill that well. That's an obvious thing. And where many businesses struggle to get past that 20-person mark. You see so many yo-yo businesses. Honestly, any businesses that are 30 plus people, they tend to be quite generalist. In addition to that, you tend to find that they shrink or they go up and down between 15 to 30, depending on the market. And the markets in the GCC region have historically been quite volatile. Okay, there's trends that have shown there's been obviously property market crashes, oil price crashes, COVIDs, etc. They're cyclical. Okay, right now real estate's booming. If there's a correction, you would see an impact on that market. It really, I think the volatility is less volatile than before, but it's something always people need to keep an eye on. I chose to go lean, agile, offshore because I could ride any market and still remain profitable.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say to you. So that was a lot of the things that you just mentioned there was part of the decision or the base of the decision for why you decided to restructure into a completely new model for your Middle East business. And that is now the same model or blueprint, shall we call it, that we work with founders on our program to help them implement into their own agency. And it's a blueprint that works globally, but especially well within the Middle East market because of a lot of the things that you just mentioned. So do you want to just tell me a little bit around like how you support people specifically kind of within the Middle East to, as part of the Seven Figures program, to do some of those things?
Look, I think any founder out there, you've got two paths to go down when you set up, right? You either go, right, I'm going to build this and sell it, or I'm going to build a lovely lifestyle business for myself. Now, whether you're in Dubai or not, the same logic applies. A lot of people decide that they want to build a business to sell, and we all know that like 0.0003% of recruitment businesses sell. So what they do is they go down that path thinking that they can be one of the 0.0003%, and then they get caught. My business was guilty of this as well. They get caught in that 20-person stage where they haven't got really anything of scale yet. They're quite reliant on 5-6 clients because the GCC market isn't massive. Yeah, 300 million people, not a great deal of business. It's nothing like the Asia Pacific market, which is enormous, right? So you can't really scale through lots of clients. And then people find that one or two might go quiet and they shrink, right? So I decided to build a great lifestyle business that gives me a lovely life, that gives me freedom. This is my GCC business. I obviously sold my APAC one. My GCC business, I didn't have a purchaser for it. So I decided, right, you know what? I'm going to create a cash machine here. I'm going to create a business that operates well, that operates lean, that operates efficiently. And that's exactly what I teach people to do. I teach people how to build a business, right? So where they're not in the weeds of it, but they can actually enjoy all the benefits from it. And by having a slick process, a great inbound machine, an offshore delivery function, and a nice team that work with you and can earn well, you can, as a founder, have a lovely life as the figurehead. And that's worked very well for me in the GCC. And to be honest with you, the happiest founders I've met are the ones that play that game.
Perfect. Okay, last question for you before we wrap up. If someone's sitting on the fence right now, not sure whether Dubai is the right move for them or the next step for their business, what would you say to them?
But I would say do it. Like I can't say don't do it because I've built a wonderful career from Dubai. But make sure you're well researched. Make sure you actually understand the intricacies of the market. Make sure you reach out to people that have done it before. Look, I've got a coach. I've had coaches all my life. A coach taught me how to do an MBO. You know, you've got to go into everything with your eyes wide open and don't listen to the first thing you hear. Make sure you speak to other founders. Make sure you've got a client base going into Dubai. Don't expect the streets to be paved with gold. It's challenging. Rates, cash flow, all those things that I mentioned, they can really eat people up and make things tough. And also the talent on the ground. You've got to make sure you run references, you get it right, you get someone that's going to change your business. And don't hire one of the duds that's floating around the market. Okay. This isn't me to push myself out, but for God's sake, I do this for a living. I've done this longer than anyone else. Reach out and ask for my advice. I'll save you a fortune.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so there you have it. If you're serious about building your recruitment business from Dubai in the right way, you can reach out to Justin, have a conversation about how he can support you to be able to do that. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today and asking so many thoughtful questions in the comments. We will send round a recording of this webinar afterwards. And if you do have any questions or you're looking to potentially have a conversation with us about how we can support you to build your business in the Middle East, you can reply to that email and we'll reach out and get in touch with you. Thank you very much, Justin, for all of your insights today, and we'll see you on the next one.
Cheers. Thanks.
Bye. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Building Your Recruitment Business from Dubai. Really happy to have you all with us today. My name is Sarah. For those of you who don't know me, I am a partner at Seven Figure Recruitment alongside Justin McGuire, who's joining me today. Justin, do you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Hello, everyone. Yes,